So if you're dealing with a duodenal ulcer, I'm going to help you understand some steps that can actually help you correct multiple underlying causes of this problem. And if you haven't already seen our video on understanding duodenal ulcers, then I want you to pause this now and I want you to jump over and watch that first, because you really need to understand what's causing this problem in order to understand how to get a grasp on how to correct it. So we'll put the link to that video in the description below, but pause that now so you can check that out. But if you've already watched that video, now we're going to jump into how to correct the issue, but even more importantly, how to keep them from coming back. My guess is that if you've had a duodenal ulcer, you probably don't want to sign up for another one. Let's jump in.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
So remember, from the last video, we need to look at the fact that this could be created by an H. pylori infection, or it could be created by this bile not coming down and neutralizing the acids, and then this acid causing the problem there in the duodenum. So the first thing we really want to look at is wiping out an H. pylori infection, or understanding that a lot of people feel like there's other strains of infections that can create this problem. So a person could be doing a test for H. pylori and have it come back negative, but still have a bacterial issue in the stomach. So we really just want to be aggressive at wiping out bacteria. And a lot of the medical world likes to use PPIs to wipe out H. pylori. And a lot of people say that's why PPIs were developed, because they block that hydrogen pump from making hydrogen, and the H. pylori likes to feed on hydrogen. So they kind of view it as starving them out. Now, I'm not here to tell you whether you should or should not use a PPI. I just want you to understand that that's what a lot of doctors or medical people kind of go towards. But we also see from a lot of people that use things like celery juice or raw cabbage juice, that those seem to be very effective at wiping out bacteria in the stomach. And especially cabbage juice seems to be more popular to be used when someone's trying to heal an ulcer situation. So those are some possible things. And we like to use supplements like D-limonene or mastic gum. Those are very good at wiping out bacteria in the stomach. D-limonene works very good for wiping out bacteria in the stomach. And mastic gum seems to work a little bit better further down the line as well. Now keep in mind that if it's an H. pylori infection, sometimes this can be a difficult infection to get under control. You might have to use more than one thing. You might have to do some of this stuff and some of this stuff and put some real effort into it. You might not fix this by Thursday so you're all ready to go to your square dance on Friday night. You might have to put a little bit of effort into this, because H. pylori can be a little bit aggressive. It's also important to understand that if you have a significant overgrowth in your stomach, when you go to kill these bad guys off, it can create some discomfort, some extra bloating, some cramping, and just know that the more that you wipe out, the more that will reduce and these symptoms will go away. And also understand that D-limonene is made from orange peel extract, so you might burp up some orange taste, and that's okay. It's kind of a citrus type situation, so if it burns an ulcer, then you might have to use mastic gum or something else first, but for most people, they do okay with D-limonene. But mastic gum seems to create the fewest symptoms from die-off, so you might want to start with some mastic gum and knock things down a few layers before you step up to some of these other things. And the next thing we need to think about is restoring this acid in the stomach function. But now, do you really want to restore acid function while you still have an ulcer in your duodenum? You might not want to do that, because that could really delay its ability to heal. Think about if you had a sore on your wrist and you're going to put battery acid on there. That's probably not going to be a great way to make it heal faster, and it's not going to feel pleasant. And stomach acid is basically as acidic as a lot of battery acid, so you might not want to restore that. However, most H. pylori infections come about because that stomach acid is not functioning correctly. And if an H. pylori infection gets out of control, it can really restrict the stomach's ability to make hydrochloric acid. If the H. pylori is scarfing up all the hydrogen, there might not be enough available to make that hydrochloric acid. So this is a really important thing to do, but you might want to allow the ulcer to heal before you restore that acid function. But the acid function needs to be there in order to keep the bad guys from coming back in. You really don't want it to set it up so that the bad guys just come in, set up camp, they raise their kids, they have a keg party, they have a good time. That stomach acid function is the barrier to the whole body that keeps the bad guys out from coming in when we eat our food. Which brings us to the digestive function side of things, and the priority usually is to thin the bile so that it can flow correctly. It can come down from the gallbladder into this duodenum here and neutralize the acids that are leaving the stomach. So we really want to take aggressive steps to thin the bile just in case this is part of the problem. If you have an ulcer here and there's any type of acid leaving the stomach at all, it's going to irritate that ulcer and reduce its ability to heal properly. So you really want the bile coming down and neutralizing those acids so that that ulcer can heal, and then you have the ability to restore your stomach acid function. So that becomes a priority, and we look at ox bile in scenarios where maybe somebody's lost their gallbladder. They don't have this guy here, and so there is no storage compartment for the bile. There's no bolus of bile coming down to neutralize those acids. And we feel like that's why you hear so much about an increased risk of duodenal ulcers after a gallbladder has been removed. So if that's the case, a person can supplement with ox bile, and then taking that ox bile can come down and help neutralize these acids a little bit. Now, it does have to go through the stomach to get there when you're taking a capsule. So we like to see people take that away from their food so that they're not neutralizing their stomach acid. So maybe somebody eats their food and allows that to acidify for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, and then they take the ox bile to help neutralize those acids so that they're not coming down in here and staying hot all through the intestinal tract. Now, ox bile could also be beneficial if someone happened to not be producing enough ox bile. Taking ox bile can kind of stimulate the body to make more ox bile, but not making enough bile is actually pretty rare. It's much more common for someone's bile to become too thick and sticky to flow correctly, so they really just need to take steps to thin that out so they can get it flowing. So in the description below, we're going to put a link to our video for 5 steps to thin bile so that it can flow correctly. You really want to watch that video and take those steps to get the bile moving so we can neutralize those acids. So look here, again, we have the restore acid function for the digestive part, but again, after this ulcer is healed up. Because we want that acid function to be acidifying the food so that when the acidic food leaves the stomach, it triggers the gallbladder to squirt the alkaline bile down to neutralize those acids, and it also triggers the pancreas to squirt this bicarbonate that helps to neutralize those acids as well. But the acid function needs to be there to trigger those things to happen. So once the ulcer has been healed up, then we really want to restore that acid function for that reason as well. To keep the bad guys out, but also trigger all the other functions that neutralize the acids so we don't create another duodenal ulcer down the road. And some other things you want to think about doing is, maybe if you're using celery juice or cabbage juice to kind of wipe out the bad guys, you also might want to drink some bone broth to give the body easy access to a lot of these amino acids that are hard to access from other foods, and give the body these amino acids that help it repair, like stomach lining. Because bone broth is very popular to use with any type of ulcer, whether it's in the stomach or the duodenum, just to give the body the resources that it needs to heal things up a little bit faster. Now, if you need help walking through some of these steps, chapters 3 and 4 of my book, Kick Your Fat in the Nuts, walks you through how to figure out which aspects of digestion are not working correctly and steps you can take to correct that. And the book is available on Amazon, but I'm going to put a link in the description below so you can get the whole thing totally for free, and that'll walk you through that process. I'm also going to put a link for our video on how to get rid of bad bacteria in the stomach, and that can help you give you some more insights in that process as well. But for right now, I want you to jump over and watch our video on 5 steps to improve bile flow, because that becomes a really big priority when we're wanting to allow these acids to neutralize so the ulcer can heal. Let us know how it goes.